Hello and welcome back to the Gaago, the analysis show. Joining me this week is a Mayo legend and a man who I had many battles with down through the years, Colm Boyle. How are you?
I'm good, Dean. How are you keeping?
Very well now, very well. I'm sure excitement is building down in the west for the Connacht final this weekend.
Yeah, it definitely is. Obviously, Mayo Galway, it's a huge fixture down here. The draw on Tuesday probably took people's attention away for a couple of hours, I'd say, but the focus is definitely back on now. Yeah, I'm looking forward now to heading on Pierce Stadium.
Yeah, look, it's great. Obviously, it's a great time of year to be playing football. Obviously, provincial finals is where you want to be, and there's lots of exciting games to look forward to once we come out of this weekend and the following weekend. But just looking back on last weekend's games, look, disappointing for Kildare to exit the championship and be into the Tailteann Cup now for them. I'm sure their aspirations and goals were a lot higher. But in fairness to Louth, I think they've progressed a huge amount in recent years, and it looks like they've built on Mickey Hart's tactics and what he's built over the years with Ger.
Yeah, I think so. And for Louth going into this year, and especially into that game last Sunday, I think it was really to cement their place as the second best team in Leinster. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's what they've done. They proved it through the league and through the championship. You know, they're in the Leinster final now for the second year in a row. And they were the better team on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. I know we'll talk about it a lot more in depth in a few more minutes, but when you go through it from start to finish, the way they work together as a team, I think they had 8 different scores from play, their cohesiveness, their togetherness, they look just far more together than Kildare were on the day. And you know yourself, when a team is together, it makes a huge, huge difference. And yeah, they were deserving winners.
Yeah, look, I think it was quite evident from the game itself, just the difference from defensively from a Louth's perspective and a Kildare's perspective. As you said, one team totally in tune with one another, communicating with one another. Obviously, it wasn't the biggest of attendances in Croke Park, but you could hear the Louth guys on the pitch, whereas the Kildare guys in comparison, maybe just that little bit less communication, which ultimately in these games it helps a huge amount, and you know it pulls the group tight together. So I think defensively it was really impressive from Louth. Of course, they gave up a number of opportunities, which you would against a really good forward line in Kildare, in which they have, and they have that capability to score. But you know, no goals conceded. You know, Kildare kicked 13, 14 points, and a couple of them scores towards the end of the game. But, you know, it was just more so to highlight their endeavour and their work rate. Look, Louth get a lot of scores and turnovers, so they don't have an opportunity to press the kick out to time. So they do try and force the opposition down the line. And in this example, you know, Kildare take the bait. You can see the work that the Louth forwards, defenders, what they're all doing. They're trying to play the game in 1/3 of the pitch, essentially, and force Kildare down into the wing. In this example, Kildare, as I said, take the bait. They go down the line. There's really nowhere else to go here. There's good ball pressure with allowed defenders, and this is just a picture that you'll see time and time again from the game last Sunday and then throughout the season of just Louth just breaking out of defence with numbers. And it is a lot of their forwards back there at times. Again, just to reiterate the point here, you'll see 10 Louth defenders and forwards, midfielders against 3 Kildare forwards. Just outworking them, just outnumbering them in defence, and just that willingness to work for each other, to hunt and get that ball back. That was a goal chance for Kildare, but Louth snuffed it out really, really quickly. And then what they've added to their game is just that transition up the pitch. They're working really, really hard defensively going back, but then they're getting numbers high up the pitch as quickly as possible. So they're obviously extremely, extremely fit. I know you're going to touch a little bit on the Kildare defensive system here, but just a picture in comparison. Kildare have outnumbered Louth here by 4 defenders. Yes, they still give away a needless silly free. They don't need to. Mulroy's not going to score from play in that clip, but they just so happen to get a score. It was just disappointing. But the next day where Louth will really have to work on is just these defensive mismatches. It's Kevin Feely here against Ryan Burns, and Dublin will want this an awful lot. A lot of their half forwards and defenders can score. In this example, Kevin Feely does get his point, and it's fine. But where Dublin would really have identified an opportunity here is just when this ball switches and Kevin Feely squares up his man, you'll see that he just points into Mick O'Grady to make that cut in behind the defence. The Kildare player here coming out from full forward is not helping Kevin Feely, and he's not helping Mick O'Grady. If he vacates that space and runs over more towards the Cusick stand, there's a goal opportunity here for Mick O'Grady going towards the goal. So the next day, if that's a Keane Murray or a Sean McMahon or a James McCarthy or John Small, and they're one-on-one with Sam Mulroy, and that's Brian Fenton on the ball, you can be sure that ball is going to be popped in front of the square for the Dublin player to get onto it and to get a goal scoring chance. So Louth will have to watch that. Yes, their forwards are doing incredible work coming back, but Dublin will identify mismatches there and look to take full advantage of it.
I think you're 100% right. And then a couple of clips that you showed of Louth defending, especially earlier on, I thought it was really, really good. I thought their general structure and their play was good. But on the other side of that, I'd say some of Kildare's attack and play was really, really poor as well. And they allowed Louth, they moved the ball really slowly. They allowed Louth to get in good defensive positions. And even a simple thing like Daniel Flynn's goal chance that you're showing there, like he's outnumbered on about 5-1, and it's got the keeper coming at him. Like, if you play with Daniel Flynn, you know he's going to take on his man, and you probably know 9 times out of 10 he's going to beat his man. So you've got to be there to support him. And you can see Niall Kelly. And like, how many goals have you scored like that? You know, just at the back post. But like Kevin Feely, Niall Kelly, just standing 15 yards back, not even trying to get up and support him. Like, if that's Conor O'Callaghan the next day and he takes on the Louth full back line goes by him, he's going to have Paul Mannion, Cormac Costello, Basquel running off his shoulder, and it's just a simple palming goal. I suppose that's the difference that we're talking about. It's like Kildare, the workman, like we're talking about at the start, they didn't have it in defence, but they didn't have it in attack either. And I think that clip is a great example of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I think we're going to go through a couple of clips on the Kildare side now itself that you had pointed out from the game the last day.
Yeah, well, you mentioned at the start there about Crow Park and playing in 80,000 people. You literally can't hear each other if you're 5 yards away from a person. But the last Sunday, there was no excuse for not communicating. And the first 3 Louth scores, you can see here, Anthony Marston, he's got Tommy Durnan lined up. He knows exactly where he is. Position is fine. As he sees Niall Sharkey's about to take on Kevin O'Callaghan here, he makes a decision. Okay, I'm going to try and get in, help my teammate here, maybe get a double up or a treble up, get a turnover. When that happens, there's 2 things that need to happen. First of all, this ball cannot get out from Sam Mulroy, because if it does, you've got your man coming at pace onto the ball. And the second thing that needs to happen is someone needs to pick him up. And you can see Anthony Marston has got caught with Niall Sharkey, I think it is. And the man he was picking up 5 seconds earlier, Tommy Durnan, is just coming onto an easy ball because no one has sensed the danger, no one has communicated, or he hasn't communicated with anyone else or made a signal, you pick up my man, I'm going here. And that was kind of a theme through the first couple of scores that Louth got. And again, this is a clip that you've shown, but I just highlight Jack Sargent here. Like, he's following Conor Grimes in a wing back in that scenario. Unless you're 100% sure that there's a clear communication, there's a signal, you have to follow the runner, because that's so easy. And you've 3-4 Kildare players allowing Sam Mulroy just to hand pass the ball. Conor Grimes doesn't do much. He just keeps running. And that's far too easy from a Kildare point of view. And it should have been a goal. And they were lucky just to get away with the point. This is kind of similar to the first clip in regards that the Kildare shape is generally good here. They have 8, 9, 10 bodies back. They're trying to squeeze that middle. They're trying to make it difficult for Louth. As the ball comes across the pitch here, they push out, they put a bit of pressure on. But as the play develops here, just watch how many Kildare players switch off and are just caught ball watching. So if you look at the top of the D here, Jack Sargent is with Kieran Keehan. He's beside him, and he just decides to leave him. He doesn't communicate with Owen Doyle, who's beside him. He decides to push out. He can see that the ball is going to be switched across. So he decides to push out and doesn't communicate with anyone what he's doing. And as Tommy Durnan's coming onto the ball and looks up, you can see all the Kildare players are facing Tommy Durnan. And I'd say he couldn't believe he can see a hand pass over the top to a free player at the top of the D. And Kevin O'Callaghan's position is really poor here. He's actually no man's land. He's not doing anything at all. He's not helping his full back line, or he's not pushing out to the man coming through. And because he pushes out, then he's late, he's desperate, his feet are poor, he commits an easy free. But I think that's just a signal. Like, communication for me is just a signal that if you're not communicating, that you're off it. And Kildare weren't at the pitch of it on Sunday.
Yeah, and I suppose it's just that disconnect. It's just kind of maybe individuals doing things on their terms a little bit. You know, like intentions are good from, in your example, from Masterson. He's looking to get a double up, but as you said, he can't go until somebody comes and takes Tommy Durnan. Whereas, you know, similar with Jack Sargent leaving Keenan, he should never have came out to try and press the ball unless somebody took his man. So it's just little things like that Kildare easily could have helped themselves from a defensive perspective. But, you know, it was a trend that we've seen throughout the whole year. So it was something that they just never addressed, unfortunately. And look, they get an opportunity now in the Tailteann Cup. It'll be interesting to see what sort of team they go with for that. But Yeah, look, they've a lot to work on, but all credit to Louth. They've got good movement up there. They've got a lot of numbers up there in their attack, so it does ask you a lot more questions. It's not like they're just playing with one or two guys up front, and like they are playing with 15 men up the pitch.
And I'm sure Louth would have targeted this, and Ger Brennan, obviously, a really smart fella. He would have targeted this going into this game about how they won't track runners. They lose. Yeah, you keep running, keep moving. You'll eventually get free. I think you mentioned there about Louth. Probably over the years, you'd probably say they're probably over reliant on Sam Mulroy. But the last day, obviously, he gets a couple of scores. But I think I mentioned already that 8 different scores from players. So that just shows they've threats coming from all the pitch, which is really, really good from them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, and that's probably one of the standout from them is this year that they've added layers to their attacking game. They're really, really comfortable on the ball. They've got really good angles of their movement, like everything that you want in a forward unit and a whole offensive unit. They're doing that. So they're obviously working really, really hard on their offensive game. And look, we would have seen lots of things against them last year in the Leinster final, and they've added it. Look, Conor Grimes is a massive ball carrier for them, but every time the Louth players pass the ball, they're following their run. So it's quite clever in this example here. There is a lot of options in the corner if teams can just probe that little bit more. And in this example, Mulroy, very clever. Conor Grimes follows his run, goal scoring chance. Look, they don't get it, they get a score out of it. But it's just essentially more about the powerful runners. Grimes is obviously going to be watched the next day, which is crucial. But just a big thing with Louth is just they like to attack the wings. They like to run hard towards the wings and look for hard angle cuts off. If they did it last year, they're doing it again this year. You talked about a couple of them forwards. So you've seen initially there, Grimes, he squares his man up, he looks inside. There's nothing on. So then he runs hard. He gets a good hard angle cut here from Niall Sharkey, and they get a score. Now, the next day with Dublin, there will be a lot more pressure on Niall Sharkey. He probably won't get the momentum like that again coming into the run. Dublin will identify that Grimes is looking for a pass here, and the Dublin forward will look to press. So look, it's a massive area of strength for Louth, and it's something that Dublin will have to be mindful of the next day. And just a little bit on their kick out. The keeper, Noel McDonald, he's added a different dimension to Louth this year. He wants to go short on the kickouts, which I think will ultimately help Louth against Dublin, because last year in the Leinster final, we got a massive amount of joy on the long kickouts. Now, if Louth do go short against Dublin, they're going to be pressed a lot more ferociously than they were against Kildare, and that's something they have to be mindful of. But I think they're going to have to be brave. I think they're going to have to go short, win it short, and try and get out into positions like this where they've nearly beaten that press. If they get into this position, then they can get their offensive game plan flowing again. So you see Downey, he comes out the pitch a lot. He's looking inside. It's a great one bounce pass into the chest. And again, it's Mulroy, angle cut to Keenan. And just on the far side of the pitch, the fullback for Louth has made a great run, and he's in. So I think the next day, Louth are just going to have to be that little bit braver in terms of working that ball short, trying to win that ball short naturally enough, hold on to possession, and go through their offensive game plan. Because if they force it long against Dublin, which the keeper will have to at times, Dublin will just not mop up the brakes, and it'll just be attack after attack after attack. So they need to try and slow down the game that little bit more by winning it short and trying to beat that press. And whether that's in training, practicing against 7 or 8 defenders to get used to that pressure coming out with the ball, well, that's something that they might have to do. But
and that is my abiding memory of the Leinster final last year, Dean, from watching it, especially in that first half. Like, he absolutely annihilated them on the long kick out, and you just seem to get score after score from it and pin them in. I think for Louth the next day, like the kick out you showed there from Niall McDonald from that goes to the top of the D, I'd say Desi Farrell would be absolutely delighted if he tries a couple of them off, because he'll know they'll probably be a 7v6 or an 8v6 when Dublin really push up the pitch. And if a Louth defender is receiving the ball at the back to goal there, a little chip from the keeper, he'll have Conor O'Callaghan coming at him, he'll have Sean Bulger coming at him, he'll have Cormac Costello ready to pounce in on top of him. So it is a danger as well, but I think you're right. I think it's something they need to try, just to try and get possession, because when they do get to a certain point, they are comfortable then getting out, but it's that initial, getting past the initial 45, I'd say, getting out of the defence, then they're dangerous. But up until that, I suppose they will be vulnerable, especially with Dublin pushing onto them.
Another one of the bigger games of the weekend was obviously Donegal and Tyrone, and it was interesting to see could Donegal back up their performance from against Derry. And in fairness to Tyrone, they had a really tough game against Cavan, but they made it very, very difficult for Donegal, and they didn't allow those long kickouts that they got such great joy of in the previous game. But an intriguing game, absolutely, and it was something I suppose that the Ulster Championship is renowned for. It was quite tough, physical, and obviously very, very close. But there was a couple of things you noticed in the game, Colm, that stood out from you from a tactical perspective and an awareness perspective from the Donegal players.
Yeah, well, I think definitely as the game went on, Dean, you could see like a lot of the attacks from Donegal in the first half. Like they only scored 5 points in the first half, but a lot of the attacks were slow, very little risk involved. But Tyrone, in fairness, were aggressive. They were well set up. But I think as the game went on, then you could see the Tyrone players were maybe physically starting to tire, number one, and Donegal were recognising mismatches in defence. So if there was a chance to take on an attacker up front, a Donegal defender coming onto a ball, or a Donegal attacker, and it was the likes of a Darren McCurry or Dara Canavan in front of them, that they were physically taking them on. And even before that, I think Jason McGee comes through the middle just on track, just by making hard runs through the middle of the Tyrone defence, getting scores. And I think even though Tyrone were getting scores up the other end to keep them in front, I think the signs were there that Donegal had the legs on this Tyrone team, and I think that's eventually what caught up in Tyrone through the end of normal time and definitely into extra time.
Yeah, look, and I suppose again we're seeing lots of trends from teams as they play in a couple of games in the championship. But the last day, Donegal, just their angles that they're running, their smartness in terms of overloading one side of the pitch to allow 1v1s happen. Like it's clear that they've worked so much on their offensive game as well in terms of trying to create goal scoring chances, obviously, but those mismatches that we identified, there's lots of forwards who are finding themselves back inside the 45 nowadays, and that's just the nature of the game. That's just how it is. You have to be able to attack and defend. And there's a couple of examples here in terms of the Tyrone forwards. Yes, they're extremely tired, but they're put into vulnerable positions. But it's only as good as Donegal taking advantage of that, which they did. So we'll roll through a couple of clips here just to identify that for our viewers.
Yeah, and I think this really kind of started to progress as the game went on. You can see here Darragh Boyle, as he receives the ball, he's his head up, which I really like about any player, and you can see that it's Darren McCurry in front of him. So straight away he knows Darren McCurry, he's an attacker. He does not want to be in that situation. Mark Curran's run here on the left-hand side is just Sean O'Connell occupied, which just leaves that gap for Darragh Boyle to go through. And what I really like about Darragh Boyle here is controlling the ball on his left side, which means McCurry can't get at him. And then when he does decide to go on him, Boyle just has the pace to glide by him, which was really, really good play by him. Again, in this situation, it's the same similar kind of attack. And again, it's Darren McCurry. He's the first line of Tyrone defence on the 45. As the ball gets transferred across there again to Peadar Morgan, he'll be able to identify that it is McCurry in front of him. And look, McCurry is a brilliant player, but defending isn't his best aspect by any means. And he's playing in a system that means he has to get back and he has to defend. But Morgan identifies, again, it's McCurry in front of him. And McCurry hasn't got that defender's instinct of when to push out, when pressure needs to get put on, if there's a shooter on the ball. And again, he allows Peadar Morgan too much time, and he gets the shot away. Again, this is in extra time now, and it's Shane O'Donnell gets on the ball. And again, he's head up when he gets the ball. He can see it's Dara Canavan in front of him. Again, Tyrone's best attacker in a position where he really doesn't want to be in. And as he brings the ball down the line, he recognises, okay, I'm one-on-one here. I'm going straight for the juggler. And in this scenario, we spoke about Jack Sargent earlier on. Sean O'Connell has a decision to make. He needs to recognise where the danger is, that his teammate needs help, and drop off, cover that space. But because he's probably a second or two too late on it, Shane O'Connell, because of the pace he has, is already gone. And I think that's something players and attacking teams should do more of when the opportunity arises. Like, I'm sure, Dean, there's many times in your career where you were back, you were tracking a defender or tracking a forward of the opposition. He has the ball, he eyes you up, and then he does a sideways pass, or he might kick the ball 20 yards backwards, and you're probably tired, your legs are probably screaming at you, and you're absolutely delighted with that. Yeah. But in them scenarios, you can see the boys recognize, okay, we've got McCurry in front of us, we've got Dara Cannon in front of him, I'm going at him, and the boys aren't comfortable in that situation. And I think, to be honest, I'm amazed that teams don't identify that more, because it's okay having bodies there and numbers are great, but when they're left isolated, like McCurry was there, like Canavan is there, they can actually be a weakling for you too.
Yeah, and it's well, the Tyrone team in general is really young, and there's a couple of experienced guys there, but just on a couple of the examples, they're just too preoccupied with their own men. Their own men who they're marking in those examples are going away from the goal. They're less dangerous, so they're the opportunities there. They're the ones that they can identify, and when they review the video, where they could potentially get to double up and and take out the danger and prevent the scores. Because, as you said, when you get into the 80th minute, if you get into extra time down the stretch, the easy option is just to go with your man who is not really going to get the ball. The hard thing is to maybe suck in an extra 2 or 3 yards, so that the Donegal player who's looking to go through that gap, he ends up giving the ball back out to your man who's in a less dangerous position. So I'm sure that Tyrone team will have learned a huge amount from that experience. That they're learning on the job every day, because they're quite a young team. But in fairness to Donegal, as I said, they're very smart in that they're playing with a lot of guys who have that forward intent, the likes of Mogan, the likes of Boyle, and they're getting those balls around the 45-yard line where they've got loads of room in front of them and they can attack the opposition's defence at pace. So, like, the Donegal forwards and defenders, midfielders, they're happy to flood inside the 14 and leave all that space out the pitch for those one-on-ones. And, it's something they've obviously really worked on, and they're a hard team to play against now, because they've shown that they can be quite comfortable if you allow them to have the kick out short. If you press up on them, they can go long on the kickouts and get goals. So they're adding layers to their game, and they're in a really, really good position now heading into an Ulster final. And Armagh are thinking, do we go with a repeat of the league final and go tit for tat with them, or do we want to press up a little bit and really have a go? So it'll be really, really interesting.
I think that's a good point you make on the rest of the Donegal players' roles in them couple of scores, because if they're not occupying the rest of the Tyrone defence, and as you said, dragging them back inside the 14-yard line, and sometimes as a player and as a defender, all this fella is doing is taking you away from where you want to be, but you have to go with them, because if you don't, he's going to be left open and he might get on the ball maybe 2 or 3 passes later. So you're being dragged back inside your own 14, and it leaves then gaps them for the likes of a Darragh Boyle or Peadar Morgan or Shane O'Donnell or whatever it is then to exploit out the pitch. So really, really good play from them. And you mentioned obviously the Ulster final coming up. Like, it's going to be hugely fascinating to see, like, does McGeeney try and take on Jim McGuinness in a game of cat and mouse like we would have seen last Sunday between Donegal and Tyrone? I think if it goes down that route, I think that will actually suit Donegal.
Yeah, you would like to see Armagh have a proper cut at it. And look, everyone knows the players they have, and they want them to kick the ball that little bit more. But if they haven't done it now, I don't know if we'll start seeing it. But perhaps there's something up their sleeve. But look, I think that's enough for this week. Hopefully, we'll be back next week reviewing. Will you be hoping we'll be reviewing a Connacht victory for Mayo, Colm? But I'm sure it'll throw up lots of interesting points, and obviously then we'll start to see where Galway and Mayo really are at next week, and that'll be one of the games that we'll look at. So look, thanks very much for joining me today. For all the small ball fans, Noel Connors will be back during the week with more analysis from last weekend games. But thanks again, Colm, and thanks to everyone for tuning in.